Snapchat laid off 540 employees from its workforce, and we need to talk about why and what happened. The Verge reports Snapchat is cutting 10% of its staff, which is those 540 people. Snapchat plans to lay off around 10% of its employees as the company continues to struggle with declines in digital advertising market. The company has around 5,300 employees at the start of 2023. Snap previously cut 20% of its staff in 2022 and had a smaller cut of 3% in 2023. So what we're seeing here is a pattern of Snapchat being unable to continue to be profitable or make enough money to keep shareholders happy or the board of directors happy, and so we're pretty much every year for the past 3 years seeing these continuous layoffs as they try to boost their stock prices and make more revenue. And there are three major reasons that this is happening. The first is changing advertising environment. The second is there's a lot of competition now, and thirdly, there's been a lot of public scrutiny, especially some recently, around social media platforms. We're going to look at all three of these, and we're going to start with the digital marketing and how that's changed, because that's very important, and it's primarily the big reason that their stocks are dipping, and it's because of this. Meanwhile, the company has faced the same challenges as other media and tech companies in recent years: a shrinking ad market and the challenges of dealing with Apple's limitations on user tracking in iOS. The company's revenue rose in the third quarter of 2023, but that came after 2 quarters of declines. Snap is scheduled to report its fourth quarter earnings in 2023 tomorrow afternoon. You may recall that a few years ago, Apple updated how their entire iOS app system works so that apps have to ask in order to actually track you. Previously, apps had been able to track and log all of your data without any kind of permission needed, but now that everyone is having to ask you, it means lots of people are opting not to be tracked, which means that the advertising that these apps can do and also the value of your data is severely diminished, and so they're just making less money on the back end. Allow Apple to track your iPhone. Here's what that means. By now, your iPhone has probably started to pop up with notifications asking allow app to track your activity across other companies' apps and websites. So what does it mean? And then it just gets into the update. And this is significant for Snapchat and other tech companies like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and so on, because this is how they gather data in order to effectively advertise to you. Targeting and advertising is probably the single most important thing to get right in order to maximize profits. Imagine you're selling something like light up shoes, and so you want to get on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, what have you, and advertise those shoes. Probably you want to sell those to a younger demographic. Maybe you're looking at people 13 to 17 years old, because most likely people in their 30s or 40s who have professional lives, careers, and families aren't going to be buying light up shoes for themselves. You'd want to know demographics of people. Maybe it would be young males in their teens, and that would be the targets that you add to your advertising that those social media platforms would then serve to those people. But if you can no longer target by age because all the data is no longer allowed to be tracked, so you just know that there is a person on your app using it, but you know nothing about them, then you lose a lot of money, because if you can't advertise as effectively, you won't be able to run as many ads, and all the money that those companies made off of your advertising dollars that you were paying to Facebook to advertise your product, that's no longer happening. And when that happens, you have less value. When you have less value, that leads to revenue drops, and revenue drops ultimately lead to the layoffs that we're seeing here. Now, that's the main reason that this is happening, but there are a couple of other smaller reasons, like I mentioned before, and the first of those is competition. Reels, Shorts, Spotlight are all social media networks copying each other, and the answer is 100% they are. If you look over here, it says Snapchat has struggled to expand beyond its core social networking product. Its augmented reality glasses never made widely available, yada yada yada. Even products launched within Snapchat like the TikTok-esque Snapchat Spotlight and Snapchat Plus subscription service have failed to grow at the pace the company hoped for. TikTok, Instagram, and to some extent Twitter now are looking at Snapchat because it did so many things well early on and essentially just copying its homework. When you go to a new social media app, it's probably for a unique experience of some kind. For example, lots of people went over to Be Real because it was a social media app that didn't feel like the other social media apps. But now Snapchat doesn't have a lot of those unique features. Disappearing messages are available on Instagram. Stories are on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Anything that Snapchat builds is copied by larger companies that have more money to use in order to try and perfect the project. Because all social media is doing is vying for your time. And if Snapchat can't convince you to stay on its app longer than you're staying on other apps, then it's going to lose money. And the final reason is growing concern that the US government is going to more closely regulate social media. Meta, X, TikTok, Snap, and Discord face growing appetite in Congress for tighter social media regulation. Tillis and other lawmakers accuse tech executives of failing to protect children from sexual exploitation on their respective social media platforms. The hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee was tense and frequently emotional, held in a committee room filled to the capacity with guests, many of whom were parents of children targeted by online predators. And to some extent, you have to imagine that Snapchat is looked at as one of the worst of these offenders, because by definition, the way that the messaging system and the picture system are set up, they're there for 10 seconds and then disappear forever. It encourages hiding things and has built its marketing around, oh, send or say whatever you want, and it vanishes forever and can't be recovered, which is kind of ripe for bad actors. As these problems grow with online predators targeting children or underage people, parents are going to get more cautious about what they allow their children to be on, especially as my generation, which grew up on social media, start to become parents. And Snapchat makes sense as one of the social media platforms to most closely scrutinize because of how sketchy and shady it's designed to be. So those are the main reasons that Snapchat is struggling. There are privacy protections causing advertisers to be less profitable because they can't target as accurately. There's a lot of competition as other larger, more successful companies are basically copying any Snapchat feature that works out really well for them. And they've also got a growing bad reputation amongst lawmakers and officials and politicians, and also the parents of the children that are using these social media apps. So those are the reasons it's going downhill. I'd love to hear if you have anything to add. Thanks for watching.